Hey there folks, welcome back, Ricky here. Alright, so since my last video of the Sharpening pond, many folks wrote me and told me how much they would love to have one, but considering that it's $230 at low retail and seeing them as high as $350 on some e-tailer sites, it's a lot of money to spend, especially if all it does is it holds your whetstones and allows you a place to sharpen your knives on. And then a lot of folks were asking me, is there a cheaper alternative? And so I basically went on Amazon, looked for things like sharpening bin or just a food bin or water bin. And a lot of things that were coming up were things for like making ice cubes and things of that sort. As you guys know, I use a food tray, which is actually about $25 on Amazon. And it's a 4-inch tray. It comes in a variety of sizes. You can get them in 6-inch depth or 4-inch depth or even 2-inch depth. It's a really wonderful setup, and it's something that I have been using in my studio now for about 2 years and still counting. And I still use it all the time. I love the bin setup with a bridge on top. However, with the bin setup, you need to have either a DIY bridge, which I have shown you guys how to make in the past, or you have to have something like a 90-watt sharpening bridge, which can cost upwards of $100. So even though it's a great setup, it's considered affordable. For some folks, it's still too much money to spend on a sharpening setup. I kept on digging and I found a few things that actually made a lot of sense, and here is what I have found. You know me, I'm always looking for the most practical and simple and cost-effective way to find a system that works and to replace something that will cost a lot more money. And so I came across these silicone trays or silicone carpets, whatever you want to call them. They're great. I found 3 or 4 that actually made a lot of sense, but this one here I found for only $10 or $9.99. And so there were a few others that actually were pretty cool. They're about the same size, and some of them were a little bit bigger as well, but they had animal shapes like paw prints and cat prints. Nothing wrong with those, except they actually looked fairly thick on the photos, and so I was afraid that if I were to put a whetstone on those prints and they weren't all matching up, the whetstone might be a little bit unstable. So this one here by Bull Bulk, I think is what it's called, it has these tiny little dots and they don't really intrude on the whetstone at all, and so I don't feel any sort of imbalance when I'm sharpening my knives on them. So this is what I went with. It's also offered in red, black, and blue, I believe, and also a number of neon colors. I opted for the gray because the red was not in stock and the blue was not in stock at the time of this video. So I purchased the gray. It works well. They're all the same thing. There's nothing wrong with buying different colors. So I have the gray because it was in stock. I did a complete sharpening and polishing session on both setups, the $250 setup and the $10 setup, with 3 different stones and 3 different knives. And here is what I found. For $250, you are getting a really high quality setup. The base, it's very nice. It's very grippy. You have a tempered glass middle, and you just have a very nicely put together piece of equipment that you can use probably for life. I don't think the tempered glass will break unless you are intentionally trying to break it with a hammer. I don't see it breaking with you using a whetstone on it. Even if you guys didn't have a towel on it, I don't really see it breaking, considering that you definitely want to have some sort of rubber base with it because it is fairly low, or actually it's fairly deep when you have the walls to compensate for. You can definitely move your knife around to sharpen things like a petty. That will work okay, but when you're sharpening things like a yanagaba, you definitely want the clearance. You don't want to have to shift your stone around during sharpening. That just makes it kind of annoying. And if you're shifting your stone around, you probably will have to shift your grip and adjust your areas of the stone. So that actually will give you premature wear on certain parts of the stone if you don't have enough clearance to sharpen a knife comfortably. Is it worth your money? Well, it depends on you. I think it's a really cool setup. If you have an extra $20-30, you definitely want to spend that because by itself, it's really not a complete system. You want either a brick or some sort of plywood in the middle or some sort of bridge you can use. In this case, you can use a $20 setup here, which is the $20 base. This is really a setup that is, it's good for most situations, not good for all. It's good for small homes and good for those who have a lot of money to spend. And also, it's really good for splash and go stones. I really don't see this being used for soaking stones. You certainly can put water in it and leave your stone in there, but I just don't really see that as being very practical. And the glue sealant that they've used is very, very strong. So even though you can have water sitting in here, I don't really see it being optimized for that purpose. I really see this as being a splash and go setup, and you have a bucket of water for your soaking stones on the side if you really needed it. Overall, it's a nice setup, but it really is too much money for many people. It's simply too much of a system to actually invest in if you are just getting into sharpening. Hopping over to the $10 setup here. This setup here I think is going to be a really fun setup to use. I think I'll be using it in many more of my videos. It's simple, it's light, it's really portable, and it's $10. You really can't go wrong. Now, obviously you can make it a $30 setup with a rubber base, but you don't need the rubber base for this sort of setup here because there's no clearance issues for most stones. If you have some sort of clearance issue, buy a brick, buy a 50-cent brick. Cleanup was a cinch. I simply sprayed it down with some water and wiped it up with an old t-shirt. And that was actually just fine. There's no marks on it. There's no rips or scratches on the silicone base after using it with the brick and with the whetstones directly sitting on the mat itself. It can be used with splash and goes and with soaking stones. With soaking stones, just make sure that your stone is adequately soaked before you use it. That way you don't have to have a lot of water applied during sharpening. For splash and go users, this is a perfect setup. You simply lay your stones on the mat, you hose it down with some water. I use a spray bottle, which actually worked just fine. And your stones are ready to go. If you're using a very thin stone, such as a Sharpening Glass or a Sharpening Pro, this mat still actually will work fairly well without a base. If you're sharpening anything but a Yanagaba, you really don't need any sort of extra lift between the whetstone and the base. Just because you guys buy something that is titled professional or expert, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will get expert results or professional results. It simply is more of a marketing jargon term than anything else. And so the question is this a professional setup? I say yes, it's professional because I can use this setup here in my studio all the time. You guys will see that you don't need a really expensive setup to enjoy sharpening. Now don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with going out and buying high quality gear. I love high quality gear. So if you had $250 laying around and you want to spend it on a sharpening pond with a rubber base, don't let anyone shame you into not buying something like this. It's a really great setup. It's user friendly and it will last a lifetime. And for those who have already invested $150 on their first nice Japanese knife, or even $30, $40 on a knife, and you don't have anything left over, a $10 setup like this will actually get you the same results as a $250 setup, as you guys have seen in many of my videos. I love it when you guys challenge me to find an alternative to something I'm using here in my studio, or to challenge what's actually popular theory out there. For those who are curious what my top picks for knives, whetstones, and sharpening accessories are, I will leave a link in the video description to a kit list, and also in the video description you can find a link to my e-store where you can purchase high quality handmade strops and sharpening accessories that are made by me. And for those who want to be a part of my live Q&As and knife restorations, make sure you guys follow me on Instagram, which is where I'll be doing those sort of videos because I like that platform a little bit better for live videos. I will be doing some here on YouTube as well, but I'm still getting all the kinks worked out. There seems to be a lot of glitches doing live streams on YouTube on mobile phones. So I'm still getting that worked out. Alright, well that'd be it for this video. If you guys enjoy the content, please consider becoming a subscriber. And for those who are curious, I do have a series coming out where I compare natural and synthetic whetstones of equivalent grit. And I'll tell you which one is actually better for your knives and better for your wallet. Thank you for being here, and I'll catch you in the next video.